All right, welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Doing an episode a little earlier this week than expected. So yes, normally we do a show Wednesday nights, but some updates in free agency and also with NFL news. I thought it would be more appropriate to do a show on a Tuesday night. So unexpected, but nonetheless, I do appreciate everyone tuning in to this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. For all of you watching live and on Facebook, appreciate you guys. For those of you who are listening on Apple, Spotify, appreciate all of you guys as well tuning in to tonight's episode. A lot of things to discuss tonight. Some L'Jarius Sneed rumors have been out there, trade rumors, and also rumors about him wanting to stay in Kansas City. The Athletic came out with a very interesting report that I think a lot of Chiefs fans will be interested in hearing. The Broncos made a surprise cut with Russell Wilson. What does that mean for the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the AFC West in general here? Because I think it is time we revisit that Broncos trade right there, getting Russell Wilson. Let's talk about that later on. And also, Jason Kelce, not a Chief, but of course his brother was with the Chiefs, so Chiefs fans definitely got familiar with him. Jason Kelce officially announced his retirement. Very successful career and definitely worth talking about at the end of the podcast as well. All right, you guys know the drill. Facebook.com/Farzin Vasugian. We're also on YouTube at the Chiefs Zone, so appreciate all of you once again for tuning in live on Facebook and on YouTube. See a lot of you guys coming into the live chat. Appreciate it. Feel free to drop a comment below. Like I said, a lot of things to get into, but I'll try to mix in some comments here and there. So if you guys got a question or anything, let me know. Let me know below. And a reminder, of course, we are doing the Red Friday live chat once again this Red Friday. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that this Friday. This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. You guys know baseball season is coming up. Opening day just around the corner. College basketball still going on. A lot of sports, NBA, NHL, still going on. The NCAA tournament is coming up real soon. And if you guys have never purchased from SeatGeek before, got a little gift for you here. You can use my promo code Farzin and you will save $20 off your first purchase by using the promo code Farzin. Go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets from there, and enter the promo code Farzin to save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Yeah, Tyler, he played 13 years in the NFL. He was drafted I think 1 year before Travis Kelce, if I'm not mistaken. So it was drafted by Andy Reid, and in Andy Reid's first draft with the Chiefs, he took Travis Kelce, not with the first ever Chiefs draft pick in the Andy Reid era, but did draft two Kelces in the span of 2 years. So yeah, we'll get into that later on here. But of course, we want to start off the show talking about L'Jarius Sneed and a lot of the rumors that have been circulating around Sneed lately. And it's kind of hard to, all these rumors that come out. I know the term smoke screen gets used a lot when we get closer and closer to the draft. I suppose maybe the same term could be used right now for free agency, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs, because they have two big name free agents on the defensive side of the football. And L'Jarius Sneed is one of them. We'll get into Chris Jones a little later on as well. As it appears, there seems to be more positive news on the Chris Jones end there. But with L'Jarius Sneed, the Chiefs officially put the franchise tag on him on Tuesday. But, it's been kind of known for a while that the Chiefs would use the franchise tag on L'Jarius Sneed. What's going to happen with L'Jarius Sneed? Because there are reports out there that the Detroit Lions and the Miami Dolphins want him. I am not shocked one bit that the Detroit Lions are seeking to get L'Jarius Sneed on their football team. This is a Dan Campbell type of player. As much as I would hate to see him leave Kansas City, if there is one destination for L'Jarius Sneed, it is 1,000% in Detroit with Dan Campbell as his head coach. If you are a defensive player in the NFL, there are two guys you want to play for who are head coaches. One of them is not a head coach, and that's Mike Vrabel. The other guy is Dan Campbell. Those are maybe the two best defensive head coaches in the NFL right now. And I know Mike Vrabel's not coaching, but we all know he's going to become a head coach again very soon. I have a hard time believing that he would regress and take a job going backwards as an assistant. He's going to get picked up as a head coach within the next 12 months, 100%. But I think at the end of the day, the Detroit Lions would be a great fit. The Miami Dolphins, imagine this, the Miami Dolphins once again seeking the services of a top-tier Chiefs player. So how should the Chiefs play this year? Because let's just assume, worst case scenario, the Chiefs cannot come to terms with L'Jarius Sneed. Well, if the Chiefs are comfortable with trading Sneed, that tells me a couple of things. Number one, the Chiefs, as much as they would love to have Sneed back, are probably comfortable with Josh Williams and Jalen Watson. Those are two guys who the Chiefs drafted in the 2022 NFL draft. Both of them did well in 2022 as rookies. And this past year, maybe not as well, but still played very well and had a big part, a vital part, in fact, in the Chiefs being so great defensively. The Chiefs, this is a defense that was not very good at forcing turnovers, but you know what they did very well? They did the 9 other things very well. Getting pressure, not allowing big runs, not allowing big plays in general, covering receivers, not allowing them to go for big plays, shutting down a lot of number one receivers, not allowing points to be scored frequently. I mean, they did not allow a team to score more than 30 points in a game this year. So when you look at this Chiefs team and everything that they have defensively, man, I just can't help but think that, you know, they really have to keep L'Jarius Sneed. They've got to. But unfortunately, this is a business. This is and Matt, just to be clear, I'm talking about just head coaches at the end of the day. Yeah, best defensive coordinator in the NFL right now. Yeah, 100% Spags. But if we're talking just head coaches, I mean, the two best head coaches in the NFL right now are Dan Campbell and Mike Vrabel. And obviously, Vrabel is not a head coach in the NFL at the moment. But we have to be prepared with the possibility that Sneed might move on. This is a guy who was a 4th-round draft pick, so obviously did not make a lot of money in his first few years in the NFL. So he's definitely looking for a big payday. He's looking to hit the bank. So if you're the Chiefs, you got to ask yourself, how important is it to you to keep L'Jarius Sneed on this football team? Is he, because the franchise tag is just under $20 million. So you have to assume that if you're going to sign L'Jarius Sneed to a long-term deal, he's probably going to get, on average, at least $20 million per year. Now, The Athletic came out with a report, I believe it was on Sunday afternoon, that he wants to stay in Kansas City and wants a long-term deal, and specifically a 3 to 4 year deal to stay in Kansas City. He's 27 years old now, so he would be at least 30 years old by the time that contract would be up. So there's a lot to think about here. Oh, by the way, you got to also find a way to re-sign Chris Jones. And let me just say this, because what was the one big goal for the Chiefs? It was to extend Chris Jones before training camp. And if you could find a way to extend him, it probably would have allowed you to have some flexibility with the cap and go get DeAndre Hopkins. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Well, why didn't it happen? Because the Chiefs were still negotiating with Chris Jones and were unable to come to terms with him. And as a result, because the Chiefs were taking too long, and at some point, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, you want to sign with a team so you can show up to training camp, prepare, and all of that stuff. And unfortunately for the Chiefs, they were stuck with Chris Jones and negotiations. They were not in a good spot with the salary cap. So DeAndre Hopkins moved on to the Tennessee Titans. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you're right now struggling with re-signing Chris Jones and you have very serious goals in trying to keep both of them, whatever contracts you have to restructure, you better do it fast. They already moved quickly in releasing MVS. That saved them $12 million in cap space. Now, we've heard rumors that the Chiefs are going to try to restructure Patrick Mahomes' deal. Jawan Taylor, he signed a very hefty 4-year deal that so far is not looking too good. Not a bad pass blocker, but a guy who commits a lot of penalties. And I know some of it was unfair on him, and we've gone over that before. But in general, those are the two contracts you have to restructure. Listen, I've said so many times, I think every quarterback in the NFL, including Mahomes, is overpaid. I mean, these quarterbacks are making way too much money, even the best ones here. Now with Mahomes, it's, I guess, more feasible. It doesn't matter as much because he's won you 3 Super Bowls. Like, you can at least, go with that. 3 Super Bowl wins and also 2 regular season MVPs to go with that. So 5 MVPs in total for Patrick Mahomes since he's been drafted by the Chiefs since it started, essentially. But man, that deal is still pretty hefty. He does have the biggest cap number in the NFL for the 2024 season. So you got to find a way to work on that. Juwan Taylor, I mean, I don't know. That deal should be restructured, but he has to agree to it. And let's be honest, once you sign a big deal like that, would you want to agree to a restructure? No. I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this, but at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are going to be thinking selfishly. Yeah, they want championships. They want to win, but they also want to make a lot of money. They want to take care of their parents, their grandparents, and then generational wealth. Take care of their kids and then their grandkids, hopefully great grandkids if they're around that long. They want to try to make as much dough as they can. And for the Chiefs, because of the whole situation, they've got 2 very good defensive players to account for with free agency. They got to move fast because we're getting closer and closer to the new league year. And if the Chiefs do not come to terms fast, there's a possibility that those guys could move on. And by the way, to be clear, the new NFL league year begins Wednesday, March the 13th. So not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. That is when the 2024 new league year begins. That is also when free agency officially begins. So, if you're the Chiefs, you got to move real fast within the next 7 days because it's not going to be easy trying to replace those guys. Again, maybe the Chiefs have a level of comfort with their young cornerbacks behind Sneed and McDuffie to the point where they feel like they can move forward with Sneed. I read you the list last podcast about all of the Pro Bowl and All-Pro Chiefs who the Chiefs have let go of, and they're still winning championships at the end of the day. They let go of guys like Kareem Hunt, Marcus Peters, Tyrann Mathieu. Just a short list. I mean, it's a pretty long list. I think it's 14 players in total who they've moved on from, either traded, cut, released, whatever, or just let walk. And they are still winning football games. By the way, real quickly, for those of you who are on the Facebook page, if you guys don't mind, please subscribe to my YouTube channel because that is something that I've been starting to get the ball rolling lately on, but we do need a volume of followers on there. So if you guys are watching live right now, I just commented below. A majority of my live viewers are on Facebook. Just a very small a small percentage of my viewers are on YouTube. So if you guys don't mind, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if anything were to happen to this Facebook page, the YouTube channel is would be our main priority. I still want to do both Facebook and YouTube, don't get me wrong, but I like to get YouTube going as well. We're going to start posting a lot of video content as well on there, not just live streams, but a lot of commentary, shorts, interviews on there as well. So please make sure you're subscribed to the Chiefs Zone on YouTube. I just commented with the link below there, so there you go. Jim's asking, what do you think our chances of getting Justin Jefferson are? Very, very little. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. I know a lot of people haven't asked. This is probably the most frequently asked question I've been getting this offseason so far is, will the Chiefs get Justin Jefferson? To me, first of all, I don't think the Vikings will let Justin Jefferson go. They let Stephon Diggs move on, and replacing him was very hard, but they were very fortunate, and they had a big name wide receiver, young wide receiver who rose to the occasion. And man, I mean, they got lucky with that one. It's going to be hard to go 3 for 3 right there in replacing a top tier wide receiver with another top tier wide receiver and another top tier wide receiver. So I don't think he's going to go, but hypothetically, let's say he's available, he's on the trading block. If you're Kansas City, and I'm kind of assuming, I say kind of, but What if the Chiefs do find a way to retain Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed both? I don't know if they have a lot of room to make any more moves in free agency. I really, really don't. The last two free agencies for the Chiefs have been very quiet. Who's the best player the Chiefs got in the last year and the year before in free agency? I want to say Juju Smith-Schuster, and right behind him is Drew Tranquill. And don't get me wrong, Drew Tranquill is great, but he's not viewed as some top-tier linebacker in the NFL. Juju Smith-Schuster is a good receiver, but he's not viewed as top 5, top 10, right now, maybe not even top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. Even during his time with the Chiefs, although I felt like he was playing well up until his concussion, people still did not view him as a top 20 receiver in the NFL. So the whole thing for me with the Chiefs is I like their talent. I think the thing with wide receiver right now, I think the Chiefs would be better off maybe drafting 2, maybe even 3 receivers. Try to get a wide receiver early in the first or second round, maybe get one in the third or fourth, and then get another one on day 3. I know the fourth round is day 3, but maybe get one late in the draft. And hope that one of them can be like a Puka Nacua, who you draft very late and blossoms into a good wide receiver. You know what? I've said the same before, but I'll say it again. One wide receiver I would really love in Kansas City, and one I think would be inexpensive, would be Tyler Lockett. There are all these rumors about Tyler Lockett possibly being a cap cut in Seattle. And if he's available, this is a guy who's 31 years old, so not old, not young either. But I think he would thrive under Andy Reid's offense and with Patrick Mahomes throwing the football to him. So you have to, and I've seen some people push back against this. I get it. But listen, you got to understand something if you're Kansas City, because a lot of times whenever I bring up a name and free agency, what's the number one thing people mention? Well, we'll do it for cheap if he's willing to take less money. Well, if you want these great players on your team, they're going to want a lot of money, unfortunately. And I know the Chiefs are not in the best situation cap-wise. And you know what? This is a great problem to have. Let's just think about Kansas City's quote-unquote problem, okay? The Chiefs have drafted incredibly well over the last few years. They've been getting guys outside of the first round. Look at the 2 free agents that we've been talking about so far. Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. Neither one of those guys were first-round draft picks. If you were to do, I know a lot of times in the media, especially blogs, they love to do redo mock drafts. If you did a redo mock draft of the 2020 mock draft, LJ Sneed is a first-round pick. If you do a redo mock draft of the 2016 draft, who did the Chiefs get that year? Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones. And I know Tyreek Hill was dealing with some off-the-field questions and all of that, but those guys would be first-round draft picks in a redo mock draft scenario here. So ultimately, to me, I just think this Chiefs football team, and I said this about Patrick Mahomes a while ago. I said in 2018 when he started, picking up, playing very well, that there's going to come a day where he's going to be without Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones. Or I'm sorry, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Well, he seems to be doing just fine without Tyreek Hill. Was not perfect this year, but he's 2-0 in winning Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill. Chiefs have won the Super Bowl every season since trading Tyreek Hill. Not that Tyreek Hill was a correlation to the team's success or holding them back from getting more Super Bowls. They were just able to capitalize on the draft haul that they got from him, and it's worked out to perfection. That's why I keep saying the drafts have been phenomenal for the Chiefs lately. That's why they're in the situation they're in. The Raiders would beg to have the issues that the Chiefs have. Yeah, the Raiders probably have a lot of cap space. It can do a lot more than the Chiefs, but guess what? The Chiefs continue to draft well, because guess what? You have to think about Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Nick Bolton. Those are guys whose contracts you've got to extend soon within the next 12 months. They are eligible for new deals, but are you in position to give them new deals given the cap space right now with the Chiefs? Again, that's assuming you can re-sign both Sneed and Jones. And by the way, after that, guess what? You got to think about Karlaftis and McDuffie, Pacheco, Leo Chenal, if he can make that big third-year leap. Brian Cook, if he can come back stronger from his injury. I mean, the Chiefs they've got so many big names, and have they hit on all of them? No. Darian Kennard's already moved on. Sky Moore has not progressed the way anyone wished that he would up to this point. But they're still finding ways to win a lot of games. They're winning championships. So ultimately, this to me, good situation to be in. And that's what happens when you draft so well. A couple of you guys are asking Russell Wilson to the Raiders. This is a perfect segue. Let's get into this because the Broncos just cut Russell Wilson. Pete Prisco of CBS Sports just recently called this the worst trade in NFL history. And I'll never forget where I was. I remember just being in the car driving when the Broncos acquired Russell Wilson, and I'm listening to Sirius XM NFL radio, and Rich Gannon on the radio was saying the Broncos are AFC contenders. Listen, I thought the Broncos were going to be good and be better. I didn't think they were going to be AFC contenders. But man, they didn't even come close to expectations. And listen, I don't understand people feeling bad for Russell Wilson. Why do people feel bad for Russell Wilson? He got paid a lot of money and is still getting paid a lot of money and severely underperformed in Denver. And listen, I saw on NFL Network, there's a rumor that they might want to move forward with Jarrett Stidham. I do not believe that for 1 second. That's like the Falcons choosing Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. You already knew the season was over when that's who the Falcons picked. If the Broncos are very serious about entering 2024 with Jarrett Stidham, end the season for the Broncos. Just don't even bother. Why bother playing? Listen, I'm not the kind of guy that says games are won on paper. No, not at all. But if Jarrett Stidham is your quarterback, and by the way, you're in a division where you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, good luck. I have a hard time believing that report. I just don't think that happens. No way in hell. No way that happens. But let's talk about the AFC West for a moment, because remember when Tyreek Hill got traded? In the same offseason, what happened? The Broncos got Russell Wilson. The Broncos also got Melvin Gordon. They also got Kareem Jackson. I know Melvin Gordon didn't play well, and he ended up coming to the Chiefs eventually on the practice squad. But those are some guys who've been key players in the past. Who did the Raiders get? They traded for Devontae Adams. That was a domino effect, causing Tyreek Hill to eventually leave the AFC West. Who else did they get on defense? Or on the defensive side? Chandler Jones. Who did the Chargers get on defense? They got J.C. Jackson, who I really wanted in Kansas City. And they also got Khalil Mack, bringing him back to the AFC West. So the Chiefs traded away Tyreek Hill 2 years ago. And what did the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers add in the AFC West? Russell Wilson, Melvin Gordon, Kareem Jackson, Devontae Adams, Chandler Jones, J.C. Jackson, and Khalil Mack. If there was a team that was able to acquire all 7 of those players, man, you're thinking Super Bowl with that unit right there. Now, obviously, it was not one team. It was just one division, Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers, that got those 7 players. My point is this. The AFC West has gone so far and has tried so hard to try to recruit a bunch of key players, and these are all great additions. I mean, Russell Wilson at the time was a good addition. I mean, his stats were great and all, but you just weren't winning football games, and the offense did stall many times late in situations. Ultimately, it failed. The Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers did everything in their possible to have a better offseason than the Chiefs, which I will say all 3 of those teams did have a better offseason than the Chiefs in 2022. And those 3 teams all failed. Oh, and meanwhile, the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. That was the first year without Tyreek Hill. That was a rebuilding year. Remember that? That was a rebuilding year. Now, the AFC West did not have as big of an offseason in 2023, But there were still some people who thought that, the Chiefs were going to regress and not be as good. And it was a down year for the Chiefs. Well, guess what? They ended up still winning a Super Bowl here. This is going to be a very interesting 30 for 31 day. I'll tell you what, this Chiefs team, I mean, the documentaries, the 30 for 30s, the Untold, sports series on Netflix, whatever stories end up being told about this team, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, because not only did you have Patrick Mahomes, who obviously is the most talented player in NFL history, not the best, at least not yet. He still has to pass Tom Brady, but by far is the most talented player anyone's ever seen. And the way this football team has been built, and the way the division rivals tried to counter the Chiefs and ultimately failed, and it wasn't for a lack of effort. The AFC West did go all out in trying to get big name, big name free agents and players through trades, hoping that they could dethrone the Chiefs. I'll never forget the Raiders when they got Devontae Adams. Oh boy, Raider Nation, they were on cloud nine. And a few days later, when Tyreek Hill got traded, I think the Raiders had a Super Bowl parade that week. That was their Super Bowl, was acquiring Devontae Adams and seeing Tyreek Hill move on because of Devontae Adams. That was their Super Bowl right there. That's the Super Bowl parade they had. Timothy says they went broke trying to keep up with us. Yeah, I mean, again, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, we never saw this kind of effort from the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills when Tom Brady was in New England. I mean, the Patriots just dominated. Nobody wanted to go to those three teams, but you had a lot of people in free agency that were willing to go to the Broncos, Raiders, or Chargers. And by the way, to go back to the Devontae Adams thing, keep in mind, that was a Raiders team that had Devontae Adams as one of their wide receivers. They also had Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, who, I think is a very good tight end. Unfortunately, injuries have played a role lately. Josh Jacobs, a very good running back, but their quarterback was Derek Carr. And I kept saying, man, the Raiders are not going to be as good as people think, because who was their quarterback? Derek freaking Carr. You're not going to win football games with him. And, a lot of Raiders fans didn't like my commentary about Derek Carr, and I got a lot of pushback for that. But what ended up happening? Derek Carr quit on the team. When the Raiders gave him 9 years of opportunities, they finally said, look, we got to pull the plug and move on. So they moved on, and Derek Carr, not getting it his way, decided to just quit the team, which I think is very selfish. And by the way, he went on to New Orleans, still not doing well. So bottom denominator was Derek Carr. If the Raiders had a second-tier quarterback, they had a chance to win the AFC West. I'll say that right now. They had a chance to win the AFC West with a second-tier quarterback. But no, they had Derek Carr, who was below average, and that's who they chose to move on with. They gave him all the weapons possible. The Broncos, they brought in a former Super Bowl champion, someone who probably should have won 2 Super Bowls, but they 1 yard away. We all know what happened then, but didn't end up happening. So, yeah, I mean, this is the crazy thing about this Chiefs team. They watch the other AFC West teams that have more flexibility with the cap make big moves, and the Chiefs are still winning Super Bowls. That's why I was saying earlier, the 30 for 31 day on this Chiefs football team, it's gonna be a fun one to listen to and to read up on, because boy, this Chiefs team, they're doing a lot of things that we've never seen before. Like the Patriots, yes, they dominated, but it's not like they ever had to worry about any of the other teams in the division making a rise of any sort. Like, yeah, there was that 1 year Tom Brady got hurt, and then there was that brief period where the Jets were really, really good and made back-to-back AFC Championship appearances. But that's it. That's the only time the Patriots ever saw any kind of a threat from a division rival. That's it. Thomas is asking, would you give up Sneed for T. Higgins? I would not. Not because I think T. Higgins is bad. T. Higgins is great. But I don't think the Bengals would do that. I don't even think the Chiefs would do that. If the Bengals were like in the NFC, I could maybe see that happening. But no, especially because they're within the conference. I don't see that happening. By the way, I forgot to say this. You know what's so ballsy about that Tyreek Hill trade? They traded Tyreek Hill within the conference. It's so logical to say send Tyreek Hill to an NFC team. Nope. The Chiefs let Tyreek Hill stay in the conference. And not just that, they beat him twice. One of the draft picks they got for Tyreek Hill, and they moved up eventually to get this guy, Trent McDuffie, forced a fumble against Tyreek Hill. And the Chiefs defense picked it up, lateraled it backwards one time, and ran all the way for a defensive touchdown off of a Tyreek Hill fumble. So it is, boy, a lot of people pushing back against the Higgins. Yeah, Chris raises a good point. Higgins is hurt often. He does also drop the ball a lot, and I know that's not something you want to hear in Kansas City, but he does make up for his production. But again, I don't see either team willing to make that trade one bit. Speaking of wide receivers, I do want to talk about Xavier Worthy for a moment, because Xavier Worthy has been getting a lot of attention lately. Now, let's talk about Xavier Worthy's draft stock first. Xavier Worthy, if you guys have messed around with pro football, if you guys have time, and you guys will fall into so many rabbit holes doing this, go to pff.com/mock. If you are not signed up for PFF, you can still do a compact version of their mock draft. Now, if you're signed up for PFF, you can do a full 7-round mock draft. It is a lot of fun to play with. So essentially, you can pick how many rounds you want to do. You can pick who you want to draft for. I always choose the Chiefs, and you just do a simulated mock draft. Now, I don't know how often this is updated, but every time I do the PFF mock draft, Xavier Worthy is always available at number 32. And oftentimes, Xavier Worthy is also available at number 64 for the Chiefs. Now, I will say this. I don't know how up-to-date PFF is with their mock draft. I assume it's going to change if it hasn't already. And given all these, we just had the combine, all the pro days are going to go on for the next 7 weeks. So we're going to see some changes in these mock drafts here. Xavier Worthy just broke the NFL record for fastest 40 time ever ran at the NFL Combine. If you're the Chiefs, that is your guy right there. That is the type of guy you 100% want on your football team. So what do the Chiefs do here? Because, listen, obviously so much of it depends on free agency, and it's so hard to, predict that, let alone the draft. But I'll say this right now. If Xavier Worthy is available at number 32, and I don't know exactly what the Chiefs have in mind with trades. Obviously, it's easier to discuss when it's happening because you don't know what's going to happen with the 31 picks ahead of you. I can't say I want the Chiefs to get this guy. I would be upset if they pass up on him. And you guys know me, man. In years past, I've always said, let the draft just happen. Okay? We're not scouts. We're not the ones evaluating players. We're not the ones interviewing. By the way, I don't care how much time a blogger or a podcaster spends on film. You still do not know the things that a scout knows. You do not know the things a coach knows or a general manager knows. So whenever people talk about busts and all these things, I'm like, how do you know? Did you scout the guy? Okay, a lot of people are talking about his hands. Yeah, he's had some issue with his hands. This is a guy who's had 3 years of starting experience in Texas. And I'm already seeing some comments here. People are talking about Adonai Mitchell, who is also from Texas. Listen, I would not be mad one bit if the Chiefs got Mitchell or Worthy, one of those Texas receivers. Franklin might also be available at number 32. We'll see if, because I really like Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul is a very good offensive tackle, a 3-year starter out of Houston that should be available at number 64. And I think that would be a very good pick for the Chiefs at 64. But Worthy, man, I know the hands are a concern. And that's not something a Chiefs fan wants to hear. Like, if the Chiefs draft a wide receiver that has issues with his hands, Chiefs fans are going to say, what was the point? We just went through this. But do you let a guy like Xavier Worthy go? Do you pass up on him? Man, listen, yeah, there are a lot of talented players every year in the draft. You would love to have 5 first-round draft picks just to get these guys. Because here's the thing. I think Worthy is worth, no pun intended, picking up at number 32. Now, if the Chiefs find out that no one wants him that early and they want to trade down, perhaps that could happen. But I think he's worth the pick at number 32. This is someone who the Chiefs, I think, can work with. And I know, damn it, I know, man. I know the drops were an issue this year. The Chiefs had a drop rate very similar to the 0-16 Cleveland Browns. And they somehow won the Super Bowl with all of that. Even in the playoffs, we saw some of the drops. Not as bad. We still saw it, though. Ball security was definitely an issue with the Chiefs this year. But I just can't help that, Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in NFL history. Okay. Matt Nagy, I mean, listen, man, I know it was not smooth sailing, but I think he rebounded. I think he was able to bounce back. I've always liked Matt Nagy. I think he got screwed over in Chicago because he made Mitchell freaking Trubisky look like a Pro Bowler, but he never got help from that front office. Listen, there's all this talk about Justin Fields and is he going to go? Is he not? Well, Justin Fields needs help. Like that team, who does that team have? I mean, there aren't a lot of players a casual football fan, even maybe a diehard football fan, can name in Chicago. I mean, Chicago has a lot of things to work on here. And they don't want to ever help their quarterbacks for whatever reason. I know DJ Moore, he's good and all, but come on. Yeah, Teresa, you're talking about Connor Embry. So to get back to what we were talking about here, yeah, guys, I see your comments. I know. Yeah, it's a nightmare we do not want to experience all over again. But I'm hoping that this Chiefs team, if they can get Xavier Worthy, my God, man. I mean, I'm trying not to lose my cool, but that is like a dream scenario in Kansas City. Because listen, I see who said it? I just lost the comment here. Someone said something about yeah, Timothy said we don't want another Kadarius Toney. Listen, I get it, man, but when Kadarius Toney, when they got him in 2022, he was actually doing pretty well in this offense up until he started dealing with all these injuries. I mean, last year was a different story with the drops and all of that, but man, whenever Kadarius Toney has the ball in his hands, he seems to make some plays. This year, not so much, but the year before, he definitely made some plays. Xavier Worthy, I'll tell you right now, if the 31 other NFL teams allow Xavier Worthy to go to the Chiefs, you're going to see a lot of pissed off general managers. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of defensive coordinators that are not going to want to deal with this offense. They're just not. I'm telling you my dream scenario right now. Rashee Rice coming back, obviously. Tyler Lockett, he's expected to be let go by Seattle. I think you could get him on a cheap deal, especially if he's going to be cut for salary cap reasons. That probably means he's going to sign somewhere else for a cheaper price. And if you can get Xavier Worthy, boom. I mean, you got an offense. Oh, who's your tight end? Travis freaking Kelce. I know Travis Kelce. He regressed in 2023, dealt with multiple injuries, albeit missed the first game with an injury, a knee injury, ankle injury, had an elbow injury in that Patriots game. And instead of letting him get the 16 yards so he could get 1,000 yards, they rested him for the Week 18 game, which was a smart idea because that paid dividends in the playoffs. Travis Kelce played lights out in the playoffs. Played well against Miami, played better against the Bills, was even better against the Ravens, and in the second half of that Super Bowl, he was huge after a very quiet first half. So Yeah, see, I'm getting some pushback on Tyler Lockett again. This happened last podcast. I disagree, Teresa. I don't think he's old. He's 31. That's not. Listen, I'm older than 31. Come on now. um, listen, he's not. He's not old. He's not young either. I think he can still get the job done. This is not somebody that is done. I mean, I still think you can do some things with Tyler Lockett on your football team. Kadarius Toney, can he work on his hands this offseason? I don't know. I hope so. Justin Ross, I think a lot of people are still kind of hoping that he might shock a lot of people. And we're still kind of waiting on Justin Ross. He's still on the team. We don't quite know exactly what's going to happen with him. So a lot of interesting things to think about with the offense. A lot of interesting situations there. Final thing I wanted to talk about here before I sign off on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Jason Kelce officially announced his retirement here. You know, before Creed Humphrey came here, I always wondered, could Travis Kelce, convince his brother to come to Kansas City? Because that guy is a damn good center. I've always thought that about Jason Kelce. And I've wondered for the longest time pre-Creed Humphrey if the Chiefs could ever get him. But no, I mean, he's got such an emotional attachment to the city of Philadelphia. And by the way, if you guys have never seen the Amazon documentary, Kelce, like immediately go watch this as soon as you're done with this podcast, which we're almost done. You need to watch that. And I'll say this right now, a quarterback with Mahomes, phenomenal. And I think, people got to see a side of Brittany that they normally don't see. Some people will just hate on her no matter what. I think you got to see a side of her that a lot of people never got to see, and there was no reason to hate on her if you watch the documentary. Yeah, she's loud cheering for her husband. So what? That's what you call a supportive spouse. I mean, if I was a football player, I would want a supportive wife like that. Who wouldn't? But anyway, I digress here. The thing about quarterback, I felt like the structure of the show was not very well put together. The storylines were fun. Hearing all the players mic'd up and all of that stuff, that was fun. But I also think they left out a lot of things. Like they left out the Patrick Mahomes, Eric Bieniemy thing in that Colts game. Like, why? I mean, I get it. Patrick Mahomes, he's part of he was part of the production team for season 1, so he definitely had a say in some things production wise, which it's not really conflict of interest, but yeah, you kind of get to edit yourself in a very nice way. I don't think it was edited fairly. But hey, it is what it is. Plus the structure of the show, like they would show Patrick's first 5 games in the first episode. And then in the second episode, they would go back to week 2 to show Mariota. I'm like, I don't understand the structure of this. Kelce, very simple, very telling, and a very good story. Go check out Jason Kelce's story on Amazon there. Jason Kelce, man, I mean, this is an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen do not ever get the attention that Kelce has. Jason Kelce, that is. And I think maybe it helps that his brother is also an all-pro tight end. And I'm sure last year helped with their podcast and the fact that they both were in the Super Bowl in the first year of their podcast. Go ahead and start up those conspiracy theories about the NFL being scripted and whatnot. But Jason Kelce's backstory is quite an interesting one. The way he met his wife and their first date. I mean, they met on Tinder. Like, I think we're at a point now where online dating is not frowned upon like it used to be, because everyone that's single is on there. I certainly am. I'm just chuckling because every now and then I'll match with someone and they'll say, "Hey, are you the guy on Facebook who does all these live shows?" Yeah. Anyway, so Jason Kelce, I mean, the way he met his wife, his kids, and obviously his family with Travis, his mom, his dad also getting some of the attention as well. The fact that there was a Kelce Super Bowl and everything else in between. His backstory is quite an interesting one. And not to get off topic here, I know I'm going into too many rabbit holes here, but I think when you see documentaries like Quarterback or Kelce, you kind of wonder, like, what if there was a documentary done on every single football player in the NFL right now. We might end up liking, because Kirk Cousins, I think a lot of people had a different opinion about Kirk Cousins after watching quarterback. I think Vikings fans definitely turn a corner with Kirk Cousins 100% because of the documentary. And I think his injury this year, people end up missing him a lot more because of that. But I mean, these documentaries certainly are giving you, like the Manti Te'o thing. Everyone felt bad for Manti Te'o after watching that documentary. People had a new opinion about that whole situation. So that's a topic for another time. At the end of the day, though, just the thing about Jason Kelce coming out of the draft was undersized. He wasn't even the best center in his conference when he was coming out of Cincinnati. He was a two-time second team, not a first team, second team All Big East player. And then in the NFL, 7-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, and all of those All-Pros were on the first team in the NFL. Just the type of career he had, just the type of person he was. And, the whole tush push, how he had a big hand in all of that and the success with it. And listen, let's see how the Eagles want to operate the tush push now without him. So many things about Jason Kelce, and we never talk about special teams players unless they miss a field goal or have a bad punt or there's a good kick return. Who else we don't ever talk about? Offensive linemen, unless they're terrible and they're allowing a bunch of sacks. And I think a guy like Jason Kelce has maybe helped change that narrative. And I think his podcast has done wonders for that, and he's definitely going to be on a broadcast team of some sort. He has to be. He did great with the Amazon Prime stuff when he was a guest for one game. There's a lot of rumors about him going to Fox. We'll see about all of that. But man, and by the way, with Jason Kelce, and by the way, Therese is asking, this is a perfect segue here. You think we'll see Jason more at Chiefs games? It kind of depends on his game day duties, because like I said, there's a possibility that he'll end up signing with a network and might do a lot of things there. But if he's not, and he might even take a year off just to be with his family, yeah, we might see Jason Kelce at some Chiefs games. And why not? Especially after that Bills game, the attention he got. Why not? We would love to see more of Jason Kelce at Arrowhead, which will bring me to my next thing. Obviously, Jason Kelce was never a Chief, and maybe because of his connection to his brother, obviously you feel partial towards him. That's the only Eagles player I felt bad for. But even non-Chiefs fans looked at that the Eagles game when they lost to the Bucs in the playoffs. A lot of people said they felt bad for Jason Kelce. Nobody else on the Eagles, just Jason Kelce. That's how much respect Jason Kelce commands from everybody in the NFL and from fans. Which again, with his podcast, it just seemed like he was locked in on the Chiefs so much. I get, Jason Kelce seems to be taking more of the lead role with that podcast. And he was even like trying to answer the questions that Chiefs fans wanted to know, like who's calling the plays. And Travis kind of, gave like a very mum answer, which understandable. That's kind of what you're supposed to do. But Jason was asking the questions we all wanted to know in Kansas City at one point. So it seems like he's always been like, and again, obviously because of his brother playing with the Chiefs, but he's been like locked in on Chiefs news and trying to ask questions that Chiefs fans want to know about. And, when your brother is an all-pro tight end with the Chiefs, a team that's, on the verge of trying to three-peat, yeah, you have an opportunity to ask questions that not a lot of other people will get to ask. So I guess from the Chiefs perspective, Jason Kelce, certainly we appreciated here. And I know the Chiefs gave their little tribute there to Jason Kelce. The Kelce brothers right now are in Cleveland at the Cavaliers game. They're giving away duo bobbleheads. It's one bobblehead, but it's the two of them together. It's very creative, kind of like the Royals bobblehead several years back, if you guys remember those. And they honored Jason Kelce. Travis was holding his jersey, his Cleveland Cavaliers 62 jersey, and at the same time, Jason Kelce held his New Heights high school shirt, which is really cool to see these guys, shout out their college or even their high schools. So that's pretty cool. That's definitely Cool to see. Jason says, Farzine, you are a dog. And capital letters here. Jason, you are giving me way too much credit, brother. But I appreciate the kind words for sure. But Jason Kelce, man, a legend. Is he the best center all time? I don't know. It's so hard to have these discussions because it's so easy to be a prisoner of the moment and say, yeah, well, we just saw him play 13 years and 7 Pro Bowls, 6 All Pros. Yeah, he's the best at that position, but it's so hard to say right now. I think there's a case for him. I really do. But I'll tell you right now, there's no reason why Jason Kelce is going to wait for the Hall of Fame. The first year he's eligible, he's in. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And again, I think with the attention he has right now with his podcast and all of that, I think it definitely helps to make sure that he does not get forgotten about as a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's definitely getting in his first time possible. So, yeah, a lot of you guys are saying first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, definitely. I think it would be cool if he didn't get in as a first ballot Hall of Famer and, in a weird scenario, it's him and his brother together going in. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Travis is still going to be playing. So it'll be a while before Travis is eligible for the Hall of Fame. I know there's been a debate about whether or not the 5-year rule, if that should really be a thing or not. And I don't want to get to it on this podcast. Maybe we can do it another time. But hey, man, at the end of the day, here's my thing with the first ballot thing. How many of you guys can honestly tell me, out of all the Chiefs players who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, how many of them were first ballot? I honestly don't know. I mean, I know Derek Thomas. It took him forever. And I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that he was deceased and not with us every time he was eligible and was a finalist. But he took a very long time. But do we think about that anymore? No, we think about the fact that Derek Thomas is a Hall of Famer. So that's just the way I see it. What does my shirt say? It's from Charlie Hustle. Shuffle on over. It's a Boulevard shirt. So yeah, Boulevard Brewing Company. Shout out to them. My favorite beer in the world, Tank 7. You guys know I love IPAs, and Tank 7, kind of is similar to an IPA, but you get the idea. Have you heard when the next New Heights is dropping? It is going to be tomorrow morning, so check it out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of retirement conversation on that podcast. By the way, New Heights posted a really funny video. The caption was, Jason Kelce's retirement is off to a hot start. Jason Kelce put himself through a burning table. He essentially joined Bill's Mafia. And here's how dedicated they were to making that video. There was a firefighter right there ready for Jason Kelce in case he caught on fire. It's like, man, they're really dedicated to their content, which is really cool. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I appreciate all of you who tuned in live. I know this was a surprise podcast. We normally don't do podcasts on Tuesday. I will still do a podcast tomorrow in case any news comes up. And if hey, you know what? If no news comes up, we'll still find something to talk about. Appreciate all of you guys who watched live on Facebook and YouTube. Let me comment one more time. If you guys are on Facebook, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get that to grow. We're trying to get a certain volume number of followers on that. I do all my live streams on Facebook and YouTube. Excuse me, but we are going to start putting more content on YouTube as well. So youtube.com/thechiefzone. The link is right there. Please make sure you guys subscribe to that podcast. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. So give it a subscription. And how YouTube, Teresa's asking, just youtube.com/@thechiefzone. All right, guys, I'm out of here. For all of you who watch live, thank you. For all of you who listen to the archive version, appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. I'll be back in 24 hours. We will discuss more Chiefs football. Take care.